Oh, we don't?
Good.
What? God, nice day out, huh? Stays like this year round. You mean it gets colder?
I want to talk about your kickoff strategy. It seems like for the first two games, you were kicking it short every week. And last week, pretty much everything went through the end zone. Is that going to be a week by week thing?
Yeah, I would say that's a little more week to week. Obviously, there's a bunch of moving parts. Like you guys asked about it last week, but Jalen Reeves-Maben was playing more on defense. We had moved some guys around. We had some guys come up, Ballantyne, we didn't know quite as much, not to mention the kicker. Obviously, we had a different kicker in there. He hadn't had as much time, so for us to be familiar with him and all that, exactly what he does best, and just trying to put him and the rest of the guys in a good situation. But I would say that would be a week-to-week thing for sure.
It was more about just kind of playing it safe while you figured everything out.
I'd say I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would just say all the variables together, trying to put our team in the best position to win. But, yeah.
How do you weigh the risk reward with that, right? So I mean, let's say you kick it short and you get to stop at the 20 and you're pretty consistent with it, but that one time they break it forward 70, 80 yards, like what is the value of taking that risk?
Yeah, I would say it's a good question. I mean, I would say the analytics say a lot of different things, right? It's the difference between the best cover group in the league and the worst one is only going to be a couple yards. So then you could argue, well, is a couple yards worth any of that? But then on any given play or any given series or in any given game, you may back them up on a handful of plays, and it actually ends up affecting the game. You can put the pressure on those guys. You force a penalty. Now all of a sudden they're starting to drive inside their own 10. You know what I'm saying? So it goes both ways. You don't have a great cover, and they get the ball at the 40 or 35 or what. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's, the analysts, I think, or the analytics people would say, like, is it worth it? Risk reward, injury. I mean, there's, all kinds of stuff. But, I mean, the bottom line for us is we like to let our guys play. We got a good group. We got a lot of confidence in them. We want those guys to go play. We want to put the pressure on the other team. So anyway. That's tough. There's a lot of things going on.
Just sort of building off those questions. So you guys take the lead with whatever it is, a minute 10, minute 15, end up 7 or 8 seconds, makes a pretty big difference. What's the conversation kicking it through the end zone there as opposed to kicking it short and trying to run
that's
some
good.
time?
That's a good question. I think that's another thing that goes both ways. Some people think that, hey, the right thing to do every time is kick the ball off and try to take off 7 seconds. I think they had 11 seconds before the play they threw out of bounds, something like that. So 7. Like they still would have been where they were, I guess, if you went back and argued it that way. I would say this. The bottom line is in this game, the one thing I've learned through my time in it is if you lose the football game, you can't win. And it doesn't matter what decision you make, whether it was to go for 2, not to go for 2, whether the analytics suggest that you should go for 2. I've seen coaches get ripped for going for 2 when all the numbers said they go for 2 because they would have had to score 2-point conversion twice, and the odds of doing that aren't very good. But we lost the game, and so it was the wrong decision, Anyway, so I would say, like, all that stuff, if you lose a game, you're not winning in this league, and that's just the way it is, But it was definitely something that we talked about. Coach Campbell had talked about it with me right before the kickoff. We felt good about the decision we make. I don't think the 7 seconds would have mattered, but anybody could argue.
Yeah, I guess that was more of those get, like, when you make a determination before the game that you feel more comfortable kicking it through the end zone, for example, how much does it change?
Yeah, so I would say in my experience, and it did come down to some of that. Like, we have a lot of these conversations during the course of the week when you kind of got a level head and a clear mind, and you're thinking about, like, all the parameters and saying, hey, how do we match up against them with the guys we have, the kicker we have? We want to put everybody in a good spot, give ourselves the best chance to win, and then all of a sudden on game day there's the weight or pressure of the situation. I would say in my experience, you're best off going with the decision you had already made when you were in a good place and you're making it calculated based off a lot of information, and you were in a cool, level-headed environment, not under the pressure of the game and all that. Every time I've gone off script and started to do something else or chase something, it usually ends up getting you, which is what makes this game great, But so we kind of stayed with our plan going into the game in that situation there, and then we all know what happened.
You had a COVID situation in your group this week, and now you're suddenly on your 5th kicker, which I'm sure is not probably how you envisioned the thing going, but just the job Ryan did on short notice, and since it's kind of my thing, what kind of range does Ryan have?
Love that question.
I do. I'm always curious. Yeah. Like he has only attempted.
God, you know what? He's got another big leg. Yeah. No, he's got a big leg, and yeah, I don't know. It's the same. The answer to the question would be the same pretty much every week, just in terms of like, if we think he's got a chance to get it there, then it's probably better than a Hail Mary. So we're going to line up and kick the field goal back there somewhere around the 40 plus yard line. But anyways, we'll actually find out a little bit more about him today. We'll push the ball back for him. Usually on Thursdays we push the ball back a little bit further, take some longer field goals. So we'll find a little bit more about him in that situation. In terms of going through a bunch of kickers, I would say this, like, fortunately that position, there's a few more on teams now because of COVID protocols, so some teams got a guy in practice squad like we do. But if there's a position where you're going to need to pull somebody up and play a guy, that's usually not the worst one, just because there's a lot of talented guys out there, and they can come in and make kicks. He did a great job. He was poised, cool, level-headed, just flat line, just like you'd like in a kicker. And so I felt great about him.
Sort of on something where you got a few more days with Austin maybe, so is Ryan your kicker this weekend? Is that something that can change?
Yeah, I would say, you and Mielbach are the two most curious guys about who's going to be the kicker. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be, right now we don't have a decision. Austin's not here today, so we don't have a decision. If he clears the protocol, then we get to make a decision. We'll make the decision at that time based off what we think is going to do the best for the football team. You know what I mean?
It's not like a player who needs to practice, I guess.
It's the same as any player. You want some level of practice, but maybe not quite as much. I don't know. It's just your level of comfort with the player. How's he feeling? Like he may clear but not feel great. Well, if that's the case, then the decision's made for us. So I guess I don't spend a lot of time worrying about all those things. Like, they'll kind of play out, and we'll see how it goes the rest of the week.
So on the flip side of the coin, did you ever think of seeing the kicker kick that record field goal? What was going through your mind as stuff lined up?
Yeah, I've been a part of some big kicks, good and bad, I guess. But I was hoping we'd have a chance to block it. I was hoping maybe before that they jump off sides or have a false start. We ran a little move call there, kind of shifted our front. They did the same thing to us on the backside before our kick. So you're hoping that happens. There's a lot that goes through your mind on all those plays. I mean, do we run the move call? He's trying to make a record kick. If all of a sudden we give him a chance to re-kick, you know what? They're going to say, well, you shouldn't have rushed it. It goes back to if you lose, you can't win, man. You did the wrong thing. If you rush it and run into the guy, all of a sudden it's a 5-yard penalty, he moves closer. Now it's not a record kick, it's a makeable kick. And now everyone's saying, why'd you do that? You don't rush it. Everyone's saying, why didn't you rush it? You should have rushed it. I can't believe they didn't, whatever. So you make the best decision you think is going to help and give yourself the best chance to win. You got to have trust and confidence in your guys to execute and make good decisions on the field out there. That's what we did. It was an incredible kick by him. Give him a lot of credit. He's obviously a great player. Unfortunately for us, we came up short.
What were you thinking as the ball was in flight?
Gosh, after he came off his foot, I thought he hit it pretty good. I had seen him in the pregame warm-ups, miss a couple from back there. And so before the kick, I felt like, maybe he can't quite get it there. And then when it came off his foot, I thought he got it after a pretty good Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. A lot of times you do see those guys drive the ball. We try to get our inside guys to get their hands up on the inside. And he hit a great ball. He had a lot of lift on it. He probably wishes he didn't quite have as much lift on it and would have gone further, but dang it. Yeah.
You got a couple more guys involved in the punt return. I know we've talked about the balance of the offensive role versus the special teams. What triggered, I guess, getting him back involved? Because it doesn't seem like the offensive role decreased in any way.
Yeah, no, there's nothing different than the same plan we've had in the first couple weeks. He's been back there for us. St. Brown was in there on the one, but other than that, he's been back there. So no, that hasn't really changed. It was a nice return by him. We had a rush on. We had a chance on the rush, I thought. We did a good job holding up the gunners on the outside. He made 2 guys miss, got 10+ yards on it, some of it on his own right there. So this is a nice job by him.
Is there anything you have to do special to prepare for this stadium that you're going into? Obviously, the turf can kind of go on you, and the wind swirls around.
Yeah, I would say for me, the whole wind conversation, this is like normal coming from Philly. I mean, you're playing outside and wind's always a factor. Like all week long, you're thinking about, game plan, like which direction are we kicking, what direction are they kicking. And so much of it in these games is determined by the weather and the wind and all that stuff. The last few games in here has been incredible. Spoiled, man. I mean, it's unbelievable playing indoors. From a special teams coach's perspective, it totally changes. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You know the game plan going in. Nothing's going to be determined by the wind, so you can do, everything you want. And they can do the same, which sometimes good, sometimes bad. Sometimes the wind helps. You know which way they're going to punt the ball or kick the ball off. So anyway, it just brings that into play, but nothing different.